Welcome to the latest edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime with me, Marshan Kenny. Well, if there's one story I love in college football, it's the story of the walk-on. A walk-on who works so hard that eventually he earns a scholarship. And you've seen those stories on ESPN where there's a big team meeting happen and they surprise the walk-on with a scholarship. Well, I saw it firsthand back in 1996 with one of my teammates, Karr Shannon. He was a guy who fought through a lot of adversity, but had relentless work ethic to earn that scholarship. And I swear there wasn't a dry eye in the house when he did earn that scholarship. I know you're going to love the interview with him today. Well, one thing we don't love is the football season this past year. We finished 3-9, and I couldn't be more disappointed in that performance. So it kind of brings up a subject. What is it going to take for us to get fired up for next season? And we'll get into some of those comments from you in this next segment that we call 4 and Out. So I took to social media this week to see what it's going to take to get you fired up about the 2024 football season after a 3-9 performance. And I had a lot of great comments, a lot of negative, fiery comments, and I'm not going to get mad at you because I totally understand this season was extremely disappointing. So if you want to go read some of those comments on Facebook and Twitter, go ahead. But I picked 4 to read right here because the name of the segment's 4 and Out, and I can only pick 4. First up, I just want to see more fire from administration and excitement. Next up, aggressive offensive play calling and a defensive coordinator that will make our defense nasty. Yeah, we got to get nasty. And next up, bigger promotion of games and ticket sales. Also, more anyone, anywhere, anytime episodes, and that anyone, anywhere, anytime train of thought. Thanks for the promotion right there, too. I'm just reading the comments. And then finally, someone says, kind of how I am when the season starts, I'm always pumped and I always believed. I just bleed black and gold. So thanks for all the comments right there, and please keep them coming in. Well, today's interview is designed to motivate you and inspire you. It comes from a guy who was a teammate of mine who had a relentless work ethic and was pound for pound the strongest guy on the team and overcame so much adversity to be that guy. So today's interview comes with Karr Shannon. Well, today's interview is meant to motivate you, meant to inspire you, and probably give you a lot of laughs between two great friends and former teammates. Today's interview is with a guy who at 14 years old was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, but had a dream of playing football, and with relentless hard work and dedication made that dream come true and earned a scholarship after walking on at Southern Miss. So let me stop rambling and let me bring in my great friend, Karr Shannon. Karr, how you doing, man?
I'm good, buddy. Appreciate the opportunity to kind of share my story a little bit. And, I think we talked about this before we started about this is probably a long time coming. And hopefully we can get through this without too many shenanigans. But, man, appreciate the opportunity as always to talk Southern Miss and specifically, I'm honored to be able to share my story and kind of my journey as a student athlete when we were there together. Absolutely thankful for the opportunity.
Heck yeah, man. And one thing, anybody watching this will probably be the most serious Karr and I have ever talked in our lives. We're trying to keep a straight face, doing our best. So we'll try to keep this serious, though. But, man, Karr, I learned something the other day that came out of Coach Bauer's mouth, and it's true, dude. You were the glue of that football team. There's certain guys on the team you look to when you're down, you need a little inspiration. You were that guy, man. You were the glue. How'd that feel when Coach Bauer, called you that, which is true?
Coach Bauer said that, and Coach Thompson shared that with me the other day, and meant a lot to me because certainly I didn't play as big an on-field role by any means as you did, or, Adelius, Patrick, Lee Rob, Sherrod, Pink, all those guys, Harold. I was a role player. I tried to be at the very best at what I did. But for Coach to say that meant a lot to me. And, everybody knew their role with that team in '97, but even leading up to that. And for me, that meant a lot because it certainly reinforced kind of who I was as a student athlete, and how important the team was to me and my teammates specifically and their well-being, but how much I wanted to win, but also as an individual prove myself as being a part of the team and contributing to the team. So it meant a lot to me that he said that about who I was as a leader, as a teammate, and so that meant the world to me. For Coach Bauer to say that, and Coach Thompson to echo those comments as well the other day.
Oh, heck yeah, man. And like I said, it was perfect word and call you the glue because, I mean, 365 days in the year. And I got to be honest, so some of those days I wasn't fully on and giving literally everything I could. But, dude, I don't remember a day you weren't on and giving everything you could. I mean, you were a workout warrior, still are. You were the strongest pound for pound guy on the team. Karr, I'd like to know, a lot of people would. Where did you get that work ethic from?
I think for me, it really developed a little bit. It was the discipline I developed as when I was diagnosed as a diabetic, and the discipline it took to manage that while playing sports. And I took that discipline and also combined it with a work ethic to be to what I call, honestly, Marchand, just when I got to Southern Miss, I felt like I had to prove something. Obviously, everybody did that was walking on. For me, the work ethic, it was more about I knew I had to work harder than everybody else to prove that I belong and to stay there, essentially. And that's really what it came down to. And that's where I developed it and understood that there's benefits to that and being able to do it and work harder than anybody else on and off the field. And so that's really where it came from. And you guys motivated me as well. I know you and I spent hours together in that 3 o'clock workout group, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the off season. And we motivated each other along with many of our teammates. And so, it comes down to, I knew I had to work harder than everybody else because I wasn't as talented, bottom line. And so I had to use that as my motivation each and every day.
I love how you say that you downplay your talent. You were a great athlete. I wish I was as fast as you, man. And so you said a lot of names on those teams. Like, I wish I was as talented as Adelius Thomas. But man, I do want to ask you that, because there were days where, you said those 3 o'clock workouts, many winter workouts, I was about to puke. And I'm just dealing with my normal kind of, I guess, physical reaction. I mean, you're dealing with diabetes, man, on top of that. Were there days where it was like, holy cow, I don't know if I can do this? I mean, were there days fighting through that?
I mean, for me, no, because there wasn't an option to feel that way, because I couldn't give in to anything like that. And when I was diagnosed at 14, I certainly took it on myself very quickly that I was going to take responsibility, for managing that. And that's all I knew. So yeah, I had to be treated a little differently in that regard, in that, during the middle of practice or, things like that, I would have to check my blood sugar and obviously giving myself shots and so forth throughout the day. But for me, there wasn't an option. And so I don't know any different. Whereas everybody else looked at me as being different and having to manage that, I didn't know any better. And so, having to, I'll say, deal with it wasn't an excuse. And to be able to overcome that and just put it aside and say, hey, listen, I'm no different than anybody else, but we're just, I'll just work right through it. And that's the way I thought about it. And I never thought about it in any other way. Truthfully.
Yeah, and you were different, not only with what you were dealing with. You're different because you're an encyclopedia of Southern Miss knowledge. I mean, like, I'm a little intimidated doing this show. I mean, I'll ask you every now and then. I'm like, Karr, I can't remember this, and you're like, oh, this certain player. You're like, oh, he played it Laurel back in '88, and his dad was the barber in town. I'm like, dude, seriously, like, you ever want Southern Miss knowledge? Talk to Karr Shannon. But hey, man, before we get to all the Southern Miss stuff, I do want to talk. We're Louisiana guys. You went to Hammond High School in Hammond, Louisiana, 2-sport star, football and baseball, 2-time all-district team captain. I mean, give me a little bit on the high school days, man.
For me, I played primarily receiver in high school, a little bit of DB, went both ways my senior year. Was a good athlete, but we didn't throw the ball out. It's not the offenses that that kids play in today where it's chunking all over the yard. So for me, I didn't have the big stats or anything like that. I'm not a big guy. And so I had opportunities to go play at smaller schools. But I had always had a dream since I was a young child of playing college football at a high level. And even though I was undersized and, had everything else going against me, I still had a dream. And growing up, for me, and again, you touched on it, being a Louisiana guy, I was born in Baton Rouge. My parents were both LSU graduates. I was going to games at LSU. They didn't want me. They didn't want you. They didn't want a lot of the guys from Louisiana that played with us. And so the opportunity, I had a former high school teammate who had walked on to Southern Miss the year before we got there, Wes Stewart. And Wes essentially said, hey, man, come here. You'll get the same treatment as a scholarship guy, and you'll get the same opportunities. And he was right. Because I did it in really a leap of faith and chose to come to Southern Miss. Didn't know much about Southern Miss. Remembered a couple of games, Brett Favre and things like that, beating Florida State and those things. But I didn't know a lot about Southern Miss. But came up here a couple of times on some visits and loved it and knew it was more about the opportunity and the fact that I wouldn't be treated any differently. And so for me, that's what it was about. And so I came and, we always talk about this is when we sat down there, that first team meeting, we came in as freshmen before the varsity reported. And there was like 50, 55 guys in that room that day. So walk-ons and scholarship guys. And I remember one of the coaches saying, look to the left of you, look to the right of you, because that guy's not going to be here when you finish playing here at the end of your career. And that was so true because there were over 50 guys in that room that day. And when we finished playing in 97, there were 10 of us left. And only the strong will survive, I guess, truly, mentally and physically. And so,
and the way you put it, too, about Southern Miss real quick, it's kind of interesting to me. I was purple and gold before 18 years old before I went to Southern Miss. I bled purple and gold. I loved it. And Southern Miss was just like an hour and a half, 2 hours away, tops from both of us. And I really didn't even know about Southern Miss until Favre when they beat Florida State in '89. I didn't. So, but it wound up being a perfect fit for both of us because we had chip on our shoulders, stuff to prove.
And you took the words right out of my mouth because so many guys like ourselves from Louisiana, from Alabama, we think about all the guys that we played with from Alabama that Alabama and Auburn didn't want, that were maybe, an inch or two, shorter than what they wanted or not quite fast enough or whatever. Same thing with Ole Miss and State. Guys like that, that's what Coach Bauer recruited. And guys that had a chip on their shoulder that wanted to prove themselves and had, and so I think it was a whole team of guys like us. And that's what Southern Miss has always been about. You remarked to me before we started, this is show number 40 for you. I believe the previous 39 guests on this show would all say the same thing, that Southern Miss student athletes always have something to prove. And that is what Southern Miss is about. A lot of times it's talked about that Southern Miss grit. That is so true because it is about working harder, doing it better than our competitors and with something to prove. And there is no doubt there's a chip on our shoulder every time we take the field, and it is something to prove. And we are going to beat you. It doesn't matter how many stars you got or what you got. Hey, we're going to come compete. We're going to hit you in the mouth, and we're coming to win this game. And that's truly what personified Coach Bauer's time, I believe, is that, hey, anyone, anywhere, anytime. And there's no truer word spoken about the teams that Coach Bauer put together year in and year out.
Well, first up, I appreciate that plug of anyone, anywhere, anytime for the show. Thank you. I don't even have to pay for that one. But, dude, perfect way to put it. And you said something. It was a great place for even a walk-on to be. Karr, I didn't look at you as a walk-on. We were all treated the same. You want to make this team, it doesn't matter. We came in as red shirts together in '93. I didn't when we had to work hard and strap it up. I mean, you were scholarship. I could have been a walk-on. It didn't matter, man.
It didn't matter. And to that point, Coach didn't treat us any other different, no different between you and me. And, we had the same, same perks, benefits, whatever, however you want to put it, if you want to call it that.
All the perks.
All the perks, all
All
that,
those
all that
perks and
gear we
maybe an
used to get.
extra
Yeah.
sweater or something if we're lucky.
I don't know. We didn't get that. You know, we all had the same, cotton shimmel shirt, or sweats that had, crossed out like about 4 different numbers on the front of it,
Right. Yeah, I was like V41. Oh, wait. No, he'll use
Wait,
42. No, wait, X.
yeah.
He's
Dave
43.
Bounds crossing that off with a Sharpie. You got about 14 numbers on the front of it.
Couldn't buy a new shimmel shirt, cotton
Yeah,
shimmel.
exactly.
Couldn't have been
You
but
know,
$3-4.
you can't get an extra pair of socks till you turn in the ones with a hole in them, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Oh, shit.
But it's going back to that point, man. We weren't treated any differently, and we went and competed just the same. We go back to that fall '93, and the guys that you and I became closest to. Oddly enough, we were all playing on that scout team defense in the fall of '93. You, myself, Rob
Tomorrow's team.
Tomorrow's team. That's right.
We had a title, baby.
Exactly. Kendall Dunn, Jim Kitchen, all of us were on that same Tomorrow's team. And the level of which we try to compete against our offense, and we're winning, a lot of times. I don't know if that said more about us or how bad we were offensively in '93, but I just think about that, and then how hard we worked to compete for a T-shirt. For those that don't know, there was the Tomorrow's Team Player of the Week, and you got a T-shirt, which those were hard to come by back in the day, and man, we busted our tails to get a Tomorrow's Team Player of the Week. And I think I had mine from Georgia. I think you got it maybe Tulane. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah, I got it right. Yeah, Tulane game or something. Yeah. You remember more than me. You remember the game I got my shirt.
Yeah. You got too many CTE. You got too many,
that's why I got notes here to help me out. I promise. This ain't coming off the top of the head. None of this.
But I think about that fall '93 and how, we instantly bonded with so many, because we're all away from home for the first time. We didn't have cell phones and things like that. So, man, we just getting to know each other and just, the time in Van Hall and up on that 3rd floor where all the freshmen were, and man, just popping in each other's rooms and guys cutting up and just janking on each other and having a blast, man. And those relationships and those bonds that were formed, man, were just they last to this day. And
absolutely, it was a fraternity off fraternity row. Van Hall to this day, V5. To this day, I get that. They got the little emoji guy you can put. When I'm texting with somebody from Van Hall, it's funny. Yeah. Hey man, and you talked about hard work and just clawing and scratching on Tomorrow's Team as red shirts, but we fought a lot. Literally, sometimes with each other, which set up the biggest fight I probably ever had in my life. In 1993, before the first game of the season, we're going at the Rock. We're scrimmaging Tomorrow's Team offense, Tomorrow's Team defense, and brother, a brawl broke out.
Well, a brawl mess, but think about this: they would get some of us, and you were a part of this. Our wide receivers coach at that time was Jeff Bowden. Yep. And he used to have a drill called fight drill, which I don't know if you could get away with that anymore. Literally, we just went and just started brawling with guys. And that was the drill for 10 minutes. You just went and fought.
Literally a fight drill.
That's what it was called, fight drill.
I forgot about the fight drill.
Yeah, he would get us and we would just go scrap with his, the varsity wide receiver guys at that time for however many long. And the period was, and you just, fighting and throwing haymakers. It was fight drill,
Dude, I had Coach Bauer on not too long ago, and I told him, I was like, y'all used to let us fight a lot. Y'all just stand back and let it go longer than it should. And Coach Bauer was like, oh, Marshan, there wasn't nothing wrong with a little rhubarb every now and then. I love it called rhubarb. I love it called the rhubarb.
I remember having, that where we went the Tomorrow's Team offense versus defense, and you and I both ended up on the bottom of the pile with one of our,
I was getting kicked and
we were just getting kicked. But then it started. We were laughing because we were sandwiched at the bottom of a pile, couldn't move, and then that was it. We quit scrimmaging because of the brawls that broke out, and even though Coach Bauer, talked about, there's nothing wrong with a little bit of fighting. I think we kind of took a break from the scrimmages because it just became an all-out melee.
They had to stop the scrimmage But I remember it was on film on old VHS, and I remember watching. I'm like, holy crap, it's just bodies, 30,
It
40
all started
bodies
from a
just going
hit,
at it.
you know.
But
It
that was
all started
awesome, man. But people say we're the foundation of our 97 football team, the toughness, the grit that we had, all the good times. I think it's from that fight, man. That's where we really built character.
Say what you want about it, but we'll tell you this: those type of things that build that competitive, that competitive spirit in a team. And we were always very close as teammates, but still, when we all stepped between the lines, there was a level of competitiveness between each one of us. And to your point, that certainly, was built by, Coach Bauer and Coach Thompson and those and all the coaching staff. But it lent itself to increasing and being even more competitive on Saturdays later on as we progress in our career, man. And that '93 season was it was hard to watch because you and I watched from the stands, and we did. We said it wasn't anymore like where now they dress all the freshmen. We sat in the stands, and all of us that were redshirts sat in the stands, and to watch some of those games was tough, man. I mean, you and I talk about all the time that Tulane game for homecoming, in which Fred Brock comes off the sideline.
That's back when Tulane was just Tulane. I mean, Tulane was. Yeah. It was bad. We're New Orleans area.
Yeah, and it was to the point it was so bad, that we laugh about, Fred Brock coming off the sideline to make a tackle, and he wasn't even in the game at the time, just on an interception that was thrown, and nobody even noticed it until nobody even noticed it. Mitch Williams noticed it on the WDAM tape a couple days later, But that first season was rough, from being a part of it, but at the same time for us, we formed these tight bonds as freshmen, and also we got better as football players. And I think that's also, again, it laid the foundation for later on. And as we got into spring practice in '94 and then later in the fall in '94, it helped us, it prepare us to contribute in '94. And, for me, as I got in '94, it was more about, I wanted to find a way. My individual goal was to try to find a way on that bus to Tulane in '94 for the first game of the season. I had to find a way on to make the travel team. And, for me, I was also playing corner, but I could long snap. And so, ultimately I became our backup long snapper, never did it in a game because we had a guy that was so good at it in Chad Lindsay, the GOAT, literally.
Yeah, the GOAT deep snapper.
He was so country. His nickname went from, hillbilly to Billy, goat to Billy to then just GOAT. And GOAT stuck for, 3 years. But
dude, a guy like that, that's something I had to adjust to. I was so New Orleans. I was so city. I'm like, where you at, bro? All of a sudden I'm walking in. Hey, Marsh, hey, how you doing? It just was hard for me to keep a straight face sometimes. I'm a city dude. I'm sorry. I love my Mississippi people, but it was an adjustment period for me.
Yeah. Talked a little slow. Words got drawn out just a little bit.
I love it.
But
vowels much longer.
Yeah, enunciate. But for me, it was an opportunity to try to find a way on, and that I guess talent, if you want to call it that, of being able to long snap helped me get on the bus, as a backup, and then I had to travel to be the backup long snapper, and then so from there they're like, all right, we'll put them backing up on every other special team. And, slowly but surely I was able to end up playing in 7 games my freshman year. And that was an awesome experience again for a guy who dreamed of playing college football to be able to play, as a redshirt freshman, just like you were. Not as much, but obviously to be able to play. But and all being culminated with that win for all of us. You talked about all us, us being Louisiana guys, for us to go in '94, and we played such a difficult schedule. We played Virginia Tech, we played Alabama, Florida, just a phenomenally Texas A&M, just a difficult schedule. But to finish up 6-5 by winning that game, the last game of the season on the road in Tiger Stadium at LSU, was such a highlight for us that we still talk about today. And for 2 Louisiana guys amongst, for Patrick, for Jamal, Pat had the big interception as a freshman, all of us that were from Louisiana, what an awesome night that was. And I still think about it today, November 12th, 1994, I mean,
Yeah.
you talk
Yeah.
about me and
Oh,
and
dude. What,
and
but
being able to
before,
make, I made to be able to play there, and I'm, Chris hits that field goal and we go up, and then we got to kick off to them, and they get the football with not, it was a couple minutes left, minute and a half, and I was able to run down there. I made the tackle on Troy Twilley, on that kickoff, and that was pretty cool, and it meant a lot to my parents, for, again, to, my mom to be there, and to be able to see me playing in Tiger State. That was a dream come true, for a Louisiana guy that grew up going there to want to, to be a part of that, and to go in there and win that game. What a phenomenal night that was for so many of us.
that freshman year for Louisiana guys, I'm glad you said the Louisiana guys, how much that meant to us. I mean, it was like the schedule was made for guys like you and me.
Yeah.
Tulane said I wasn't good enough. LSU said I wasn't good enough. Same to you. And their first game we beat them, the last game we beat them, and it's like, well, I guess I made the right decision, and I'm glad y'all didn't tell me I was good enough.
And so, as we look towards 95, I'm still trying to figure it out and just trying to prove myself in the off season. And, and I was so thankful as a younger guy, some of those older guys looking after me, especially the DBs, like Melvin Ratcliffe. Melvin was a former walk-on as well. And man, he was so good to me. And Sean Gamble, Sweetwater, in that 94 year. And then Big Sweet, those guys were so good. Mike Tobias, man. I mean, Mike was one of the best players we had, a legendary, defensive lineman. But Mike, man, he treated everybody, didn't matter. And, that's something that I took that, Adam Kennedy is another guy, who I later roomed with the next year. Mark Montgomery, those guys looked after me and were good to me. And that's something I carried forward as I got older, as a junior and senior, to younger guys, that to treat them well and to help them out, because to kind of pay it forward, or pay it back, I should say, more so, because those, I know how I felt as a freshman and redshirt freshman and still trying to learn. And so that meant a lot to me.
Yeah, Karr, that's funny. You said Mike Tobias' name. Anybody that know Mike Tobias in Southern Miss football history, easily one of the best defensive tackles we've ever had, easily. But one thing I want to think of, do you remember this? Like when we celebrated, a guy like Mike Tobias, Ice Mike, he celebrated tough. Like, you'd be like, yeah, and he'd shove you to the ground. And this is about as strong a guy as you can imagine. And I remember getting slammed on the ground. So we got to a point, if plays were made or something, I'd run away from him. I literally would avoid him, because he hurt me a couple of times, slamming me to the ground.
I tell the story too. And when we played in 96 at Tulane and I blocked that punt, after that play, I jumped into the stands. And I jumped into the stands, into the arms of Tiny, up to Mike Tobias. I jumped in over the wall, and Mike picked me up in 96, when he was a spectator, man. And again, just bear hug me, and he's, 2 years removed from playing. But, to your point, man, he was such a great teammate, such a good guy.
Unbelievable talent too, man. And you're getting into your sophomore year right there in 95, and you're starting to make a name for yourself. I mean, you're so well respected on the team. Like I said, at this point, when I need a little motivation, inspiration, I'm looking over at Karr Shannon daily, just as I'm about to puke with whatever's going on. But you're making a name for yourself. You are, man.
Man, I think, it was about, I felt like I had to do it better than, or at least try to do it better than everybody, both on and off the field, in the classroom, in winter workouts, and all those different things, because ultimately, I wasn't on scholarship. So I had to prove myself each and every day that I belonged. And I wasn't always successful at that, because I wasn't as talented as so many guys I played with. I was just, and the game was still moving probably faster than I was up to speed at that time. And, for me, it was, again, just trying to prove myself day in and day out with my effort, and just being relentless with that, and never giving in. And, even, we always talk about winter workouts, but at the old sports arena, at 5:30 in the morning, and they cut the heat up and wearing sweats. And, we had we had the wrestling station, like you had to wrestle. I mean, like, it was just, and you would, it seemed like the longest minute of your life, minute and a half, when you're wrestling and guys are, you're wrestling guys, and then the guys on the edge of the mat are hitting you and all that. But then and then you had the perfect sprints, and you had to break down, you had to do, all those different things. I felt like I had to do it better than everybody else, just from an effort standpoint. And so, spring '95 was still tough, still trying to find my way. And but as we got into fall camp in '95, I eventually earned an opportunity playing regularly on the kickoff cover unit. Coach Butler, thank God for Randy Butler, because he gave me the opportunity to do it consistently. So that was kind of a start. So ended up playing in 11 games, all 11 games in '95, and intermittently, pretty consistently though on the punt return team as well in '95. Coach Womack giving me an opportunity, and a few games here and there defensively, but to be able to play in every game was phenomenal. And that '95 season was full of a lot of great memories, but a lot of heartbreak too. And we always talk about how close we came. We go 6-5 again, but we lose 4 games by a total of 10 points. And the most heartbreaking loss I think I've ever experienced as a player, as a coach.
You're not going to talk about Bama, are you, Karr? I thought we were going to. You're not going
to. That game in '95, that's the second game of the season, where we're in Birmingham, we're at Legion Field, and we're dominating them all day long, and we're winning that game until the final minute. And to lose that game still haunts every one of us that were a part of that team till today. And I don't know anyone that was a part of that team, coach or player, that game still doesn't bother me. And I just said it's the most difficult game I've ever been a part of, and difficult loss, I should say.
It hurts,
and,
man.
I know Coach Bauer still talks about it. Coach Thompson definitely still talks about it. I don't think we ever ran 8 pony from a coverage standpoint again. I mean, I think it still haunts us to this day. And so I think, but a lot of lessons came from '95, right? We came up short on 4 of those losses by a total of 10 points, and so close to really getting over the hump. And a lot of lessons were learned as we built for the '96 season, and a phenomenal nucleus of players, talented guys, but also great leaders on and off the field too. And that's really, and '96 was really a turning point in a lot of ways for me personally, and also for us as a team and a program, because as we go into that off season, Coach Thompson shifts from that 4-man front that he had played for so many years to an Okie front, to an odd man front. And what it did, it allowed us to get our playmakers on the field, and all of our playmakers, a guy like Rob Brown, a selfless guy. And it was a little hard to swallow first, but again, a selfless move for him, moving from defensive end, where he was phenomenal, inside to nose. And it also allowed, to guys like TJ to get on the field, to Darius to get on the field, said Walthall.
You're getting to some of the specifics right there. And for somebody to really understand what Karr is getting at, not only was it getting the best players on the field at Southern Miss, from an outsider's perspective, what John Thompson did right there was unique to college football. Like, we were on highlights sometimes just showing us bouncing around and things, because we'd have times we didn't have a lineman in a 3-point stance. It was craziness to a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, and to your point about not having a down lineman, we would have those periods in practice. There would be a 4-minute period of prowling and stimming, where guys are moving around, and what that defense did, not only did it allow us to put our best 11 guys on the field. And let me first say, I definitely was not one of those guys. 100%.
I'll go to war with you any day, Karr. You know that.
But it allowed us to get our best 11 players on the field. And when you're talking about a talented group of players, of athletes, but it also was so dynamic because it allowed Coach Thompson to really scheme and game plan and, bring pressure from so many different angles. And, you didn't know where it was coming from, because like you talked about, guys moving around and offensive lines couldn't set protections. You'd see, TJ would come from one side, or maybe said Walthall, or maybe you're bringing a corner blitz off the boundary or something like that. You just never knew where. And even it got even more evolved. I mean, we think about it like the next year, '97, with Ty Trahan.
Mhm.
coming from the, lining up in the secondary and coming from the second level,
Yeah.
So Coach Thompson really allowed him to be even more creative with bringing pressure.
If you want to break the rock, you need to make yourself indestructible. If you want to play between the hedges, you need to work out there, up there, down there, everywhere. If you want to reach the win bar, you need to lose sleep, lose count. You need to play every game like you got nothing to lose.
All right, so now we're getting in the spring of '96, man, and you've made a huge impact on this team. I mean, just being an inspiration for all of us. I mean, on days we're having a bad day, we look to you for inspiration and stuff. And I know during that spring of '96, special teams coach Joe Robinson, which was a new position more or less that Coach Bauer seemed he needed to make, but Joe Robinson saw a lot in you, man. He saw a lot in you.
Man, I'll tell you what, Joe Rob was really what changed the trajectory of my time at Southern Miss, truly. He gave me the opportunity, and not just me, so many guys like myself, Tyrone Boulware, Brandon Francis, Jim Kitchen, Mo Gowdy, Mike Villon, guys like that we were not starters, but guys that were good enough to contribute. And he gave us ownership of a role. And we executed at such a high level, man. And Joe Rob, really, we were already good in special teams, but he took it to another level. And as you well know, we won games because of how good we were in the kicking game. And it changed games because of how well we did in turn and field position. And so he believed in me and gave me opportunities. And, from there, I just took it and ran with it. And I was able to, even though, I wasn't very big, I was able to, I used angles and not afraid to hit somebody and and that's really ultimately what it was all about, effort and just, no fear, truly.
You had
And
no fear. You knock anybody out, man. And I wish people could see behind closed walls, because closed doors, because fans see like offense, defense. Man, dude, behind the closed doors, special teams was just as important as offense. Defense, special teams. I mean, sometimes special teams are more important. Like literally, your role on the team was just as important as mine. Literally.
Yeah. We took a lot of pride. The meetings we would have every morning during the week. At 6:30 in the morning. So it was a lot of it. Just the same amount of effort and film study off the field as we put in offense and defense. But Coach Joe Rob, again, just helped change my life in terms of the opportunities he gave me, and that ultimately is what led to a scholarship, truthfully.
Yeah, but let's not get right into that scholarship. Let's set it up just a little bit, man, because golly, Tim Doherty did a story on you. Man, it was huge, game-changing kind of story, man.
Tim was the dough man.
The dough man.
Writer at Hattiesburg American. And he wrote a story on me a couple weeks before the Georgia game during two-a-days and talked about my journey as a walk-on and all the trials I had been through, and then also about me being a type 1 diabetic and having to manage that as being a student athlete. And so I felt like that had something to do with it, along with, the time on the field. And then, man, Coach Underwood, he would always come out there during two-a-days and he always give that same speech, right? He talked about the 5 Ps, like, man, you got to have proper preparation prevents poor performance. And, as he's doing this, he's got a wad full of red man and he's spitting on everybody. And, but he's also talking about, you got 3 types of players. You got winners, you got losers, and you got shoulder shruggers. And he recognized me. He had read the article and he knew my story from Coach Bauer. And he had talked about how, guys are, feeling sorry for themselves, but I was a winner because I was paying to be out there in that heat and giving the effort to wear the black and gold, man. And I feel like a lot of those things just kind of culminated into what happened a couple of days later. And what that morning, that Thursday morning, about a week and a half before we played Georgia, we walk into that team meeting before our first practice, and Coach starts talking about it. And
Karr, we knew it was a different kind of vibe meeting. Didn't know exactly quite what was going on, but we knew it was a different kind of vibe. Something big was about to happen.
He starts talking about me and he starts talking about a player, right? And and then I realized he's talking about me. He's talking about the work I'd done in the classroom, being a leader on and off the field, the things I had done in the special teams and how I was being, just a more consistent contributor and so forth. And he calls me up there and he awards me a scholarship and, gives me this ball that's over my shoulder, as you can see right there, signed by the entire team. And Marshan, I tell you, there wasn't a dry eye in the place, man. You were right there,
I
sitting there,
cried.
right there.
I was crying.
And coaches were crying and coaches were teared up. And, we see that on social media now all the time. And it still gets me every time I see that, because I know what that kid who's just got awarded that scholarship, I know what he's been through because I lived it. And what still for an individual, I achieved that goal that I set out to achieve, right? To earn that scholarship. But what also was so awesome was how excited you guys were for me. And that meant so much to me. Coaches, players, my team, how excited you guys were for me to earn that scholarship. That meant the world to me, man. And, to have that support and you guys, you and Kendall and Kitch and so many other guys that were so, we were all so close, and Rob Brown and that we'd started with, and it just and just everybody in the room, just how supportive you guys were of me and how excited you were for me. Meant a lot.
Oh yeah, man. Like you said, wasn't dry in the house. I can't get enough of those walk-on stories, and then to see it with one of your best friends right in front of you, paid the price to earn that scholarship, man. That was a huge day. And but man, it just set you up. And then Coach Bowers, well, let's wipe away the tears. Let's hit the field and start working hard again. Good job, Karr.
Yeah, man. And I always like to say, I think it's important, to be able to. I took a moment. I went to Coach Coleman's office. God bless Coach Coleman. What an amazing man he was for us, and was able to call my mom and share with her the news, and her being in tears, and it got me emotional, and I still think about it to this day. But her sacrifice for me, and because I had to pay my way for those few years, and it, man, what an awesome phone call that was, to be able to call my mom to say, hey, this just happened, man. It was just unbelievable. And so hung up with her, and then, man, we're right back at it out of the field, and so our journey begins in '96, or it continues.
I can't even imagine that call to mom, because she was like extended family, man. There were some parents out there that were like, we loved them to death and loved seeing them. And so, but that call, man. So, but congratulations, even 25 years later. What a big deal that was. Big day, the walk-on story. But yeah, man, getting that season, like I said, now this team, it's offense, defense, special teams. Everyone just as important as the other. And you're a key component to us winning. We beat Georgia. And man, you talk about making big plays. You made 2 key big plays at Louisville and at Tulane with 2 big block punts in both of those games. I mean, game-changing plays that helped us win.
Yeah, Marshan, I didn't tell anybody this, but for me, going into '96, I put aside that whole scholarship thing. Certainly grateful to have been awarded it, but for me, I want to make, before I finished playing, I really wanted to make a play that made a difference, man. That made a difference in the game beyond just a key block or a big tackle. Like, I wanted to make a big play, and I got that opportunity. It was our first conference game. We're at Louisville. It's the first Conference USA game in school history, and then we're in the first quarter. We force a 3-and-out on Chris Redmond in that offense, and Coach Joe Robbie calls Coop, right, which was the name of the play we had designed going into that. It named after the head coach of Louisville, Ron Cooper at the time. And he calls it. I break through the C gap. I block the punt, pick up a block as Chandler Smith scoops it up and scores. And it would end up being the eventual game-winning score for that game. And it was unbelievable to be able to make a big play that really made a difference in the game beyond, like I said, just a block or a tackle. And that, man, what a phenomenal day that was, for me as an individual to be able to contribute, because a really big play to a win. And man, it made such a huge impact, and man, to have my family in the stands too. And what a day that was. And, later to do it a couple weeks later, again, in the dome at Tulane. And again, we're Louisiana guys, and right in front of all kinds of family to make a big play. And then, as I said earlier, I remember jumping in the stands in a Mike Tobias's arms after I made the play. But it was such an awesome experience to be able to have an opportunity to make some big plays that really made differences in games.
No, heck yeah, man. And we wound up having the season that year 8-3. Didn't meet expectations like we wanted to. Didn't make a bowl because even 8-3 teams were in the top 25 most of the year. Didn't make a bowl back then, but that's a whole nother story. Fell short of Houston, but man, you're making such a big impact that man, there is a section of the stadium set out for you called Karr's Corner. I mean, there's just a group of fans there to see you, man. And I remember looking
Well,
up at it like, I'm down here, man. What about me? Nothing. Nothing.
yeah, I got to move out of the Van Hall in '96. I think I was the first guy to move out of Van Hall. And I moved in with some guys on the baseball team. We had two houses right there on West Ray Drive off of 4th Street. And it was so cool those last couple of years to have Karr's Corner right there in the student section. And they had that sheet that hung over that second portal. And man, Campus PD would block it all for them. And it was a lot of guys on the baseball team and girls from the volleyball team. And man, and those guys became such close friends, even, to this day, like you and I are. And guys like, Mike Federico and Chris Hesse, Matt Baltz and Jeff Lupo, Jared Martin, Jeremy Schott, all those guys, man, they were a part of that Karr's Corner, man. And they became such a support group for me as well and encouraging me. And man, it was so fun to run out of that tunnel in '96, '97 and, to touch the rock and run out there and run across the field and go point at those guys, and even out on the field during games and point, and they would yell for me. And man, it was just, what a phenomenal story to have those guys up in the stands cheering for you. And you had your own section, for a guy that came here with walking on. And now, you got your whole crew up there in the student section. You had Karr's Corner, man. And Joe Rob and I used to sit there in the middle of the game, and he loved watching those guys. He used to get the biggest kick out of them,
It was just such a cool story. It comes from a guy who's walking on to now a lot of people on the team want to be like Karr, man. All of a sudden, like, I'd love to be as cool as Karr is. He's got his own section, man. But man, that season though, 8-3, lose to Houston. I mean, it cost us a bowl game, and but it made for a theme for that next season, unfinished business. I mean, am I wrong?
No doubt about it, man. It was just continue to build, and we came up short on our goal again of being undisputed conference champs and making it to a bowl, because it was just it still bothers us to the day, because there wasn't that many bowls back then, but it set that tone, and for '97. And what that '97 group was guys that had that goal in mind and nothing else. It was about winning at whatever cost, in terms of what we were what we were willing to sacrifice in the off season. And that championship was built in the off season. And that started in January, and we came back in January of '97 all the way through spring practice, in the summer, and then fall camp. And it was the only focus we all had. And it was about winning that conference championship and getting to the Liberty Bowl. No doubt.
And that's where a guy like you, man, being literally, like Coach Bauer said, the glue of the team. Like, when days I couldn't go another step, I was so tired, man. I'm looking over at Karr. Karr's doing it, man. Push. I mean, you were really motivated that off season, man. You were getting after it.
Well, listen, it was my last chance. Yeah, I knew that was that. You had an additional opportunity. You got a chance to go, to camp with Arizona, and so many guys, so much talent on those teams, played in the NFL, got the opportunity at the next level, or played in Canada or whatever. I was fighting to get on the field with, such a talented group, and I knew this was my last opportunity, and I did not want to let any opportunity, I didn't want to let that slip through our hands. And so for me, that was a singular focus that I think we all shared. And you motivated me, and vice versa. And we all, picked each other up when we were struggling. And because ultimately I knew it was, for me, it was my last rodeo, as they say. And it was the last opportunity I would ever have to wear the black and gold was that season. And to be able to, strap it on, button it up, however you want to say it. And I didn't want to finish playing and not accomplish that goal as a team.
Yeah, and you had accomplished so much even heading into that season. We'll get into it. But, man, another thing you accomplished, you got on an All-American team, which I thought was pretty cool, man. The Unsung Heroes All-American team. I thought that was super cool. Like, heck yeah, he deserves recognition.
Man, it was, it was College Football Chronicles Unsung Hero All-American Team. And that was more about my journey as a walk-on, again, as a diabetic, and some of the work I had done and mentoring newly diagnosed kids and, some things like that. And so that's why I was awarded that opportunity. There's a lot of guys on that team that were overachievers throughout Division I football. And it was nice to certainly be recognized for that.
Heck yeah, man. And I had that Houston game circled later on in the season, game 10 in 97, revenge for the 96 loss. But, man, what's some big stories you might remember from the 97 season prior to getting to Houston?
Man, I'll tell you, I was, even going back to that first game of the year, we go to the Swamp, and they're defending national champions, and it's nationally televised game on ESPN2. And, man, we're going to kick off to open the season and to Florida. And I ran down there and I made the opening kickoff, and it was kind of right near our sideline. And I was so excited, man. I jumped up and I ran all the way down the sideline, high-fiving guys. And, I always joke that it was the first and only time I led the team in tackles, right?
There you go.
The first one of the season. So, but man, what an atmosphere that was. We played so well that night, came up short because offense was not good.
I joke with Lee all the time. I'm like, dude, could we have just got like a little offense that night? A little bit.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Luttrell had like 37 tackles or something like that.
I don't know what else we could have done.
Maybe embellished a little bit, but man, so many great memories, from that season leading up to that Houston game. I mean, we go to Illinois, go to Big Ten country the next week, home of Dick Butkus and Red Grange, and winning there in a Big Ten school. Obviously the tragedy that ensued as before the game against Nevada with Coach Bauer losing his daughter, and how we came up and just played lights out that day, and how much that meant to Coach Bauer, and so many memories from that 97 season, and then taking on Tulane, who had been upstart with Coach Bowden, and just thrashing them that day, and just putting little brother back in its place, if you want to call it that, and so as we led up to that Houston game, man, so much. I think we were not going to be denied. There was no doubt about it. You always kind of go into games and you have a little bit of nervousness, like, man, I don't know what's going to happen. No doubt. There's no doubt in that game. Like 2 games of my life that I felt like ultra confident, and it was the Houston game, and then later on that Pitt game, that Liberty Bowl game. But that Pitt game, it was kind of personified by Pat's hit of the wide receiver on the little screen, and he just smokes the guy, tooth flies out and helmet off, that sort of thing. But that's what that game was, man. And it was an absolute beatdown. They never crossed the 50-yard line. We win 33-0. I mean, even in special teams, we take the opening kickoff of the second half, and Booth cuts right off my backside. We were returning for a touchdown. The guy I blocked that led to springing him. He actually spit in my face as I was yelling at him, running down the field,
A Houston guy. Jeez.
Classic group there. But, to get that invite to the Liberty Bowl at home, and they tear it, the guys in Karr's corner are the ones up on the goalpost that tear it down,
people forget they tore the goalpost down that day. I forget about that sometimes.
I remember, I remember Clay Smith talking about, Clay up on the goalpost, and he talks about how the goalpost fell on him, but the goalpost went down that night, and to get that invite was so awesome at home. And I remember the next Monday morning, as we had that academic breakfast, right? We open up the USA Today, and there's a picture of myself, Adelius, and I believe you're in the background too, of holding up the trophy.
Oh, yeah.
The invite. It was in the USA Today, which was really cool, and we still had some unfinished business. We had to go to Memphis the next week, and we beat the hell out of them to claim, undisputed conference champs, because we didn't want to share it like we had the year before. And, we're heading to Memphis, a couple of weeks later, man.
Yeah, it was just such a special finish to the season. And obviously what you said with Coach Bauer and what he had to deal with his family situation, just it meant a lot more, a little deeper meaning in that season. And then, Memphis, Liberty Bowl week, Pittsburgh, for whatever reason, Lee Corso and all those guys picked pick them to win. The Pitt fans think they're going to win. I'm like, you must not be watching the film. Maybe you haven't seen film us. I mean, so
I don't think
I don't know.
they never knew what was going to hit them. Literally. Literally. And we were so much better than they were up and down, in all three phases. Athletically, we had way more team speed than they did. And we won everything that week beyond just the game. A lot of people don't know about even the first night we're there at Graceland. We won the dance contest. TJ Slaughter and Mo Gowdy.
We had TJ. You weren't going to beat TJ Slaughter in a dance contest.
And, I still had that on film because if you remember, I brought a video camera and I documented like the whole week behind the scenes.
The handheld, the little handheld.
Yeah, man. And so, everything from the dance contest from our point of view, from, riding the bus to practice to being in the locker room and all that, man, I wanted to savor every moment of that because it was my last one. And so I did. I recorded, I soaked it all up, man. It was so fun to guys clowning on the bus or in the locker room with me with the camera and, like David Verdell and Zaid Houston, those young guys, man, cutting up and AD and, making fun of guys in the stretch lines and all that stuff, man. It just, what a week that was and how it culminated in just an absolute beatdown of Pitt, 41-7. We scored 21 points offensively, scored 6 touchdowns, basically. We missed the PAT, that last one, but we scored 3 times offensively, 3 times defensively. What a night that was. I always, joke with Terrence Parrish, when he picked that ball off, I was the only one to tackle him, and that was in the end zone at the end, What a night, how much fun that was. And, just making plays all up and down the field, you could not have scripted a better ending for our time, man, at Southern Miss. You couldn't have. And, and for us, they always talk about, people talk about, hey, man, are bowl games relevant anymore? They are. Because if you don't experience it from the student athlete's perspective, you just don't know it. But to go out with a win, and it is what a phenomenal way to finish your career. And it really couldn't have ended any better for us, truly.
Oh, absolutely. And the relationships made and, stories like yours, which really stick out, man, with, everything you dealt with, earning the scholarship to just having Karr's Corner. And then even more awards came your way. I mean, you were a good dude on the field, but you were an even better man off of it. You got the American Football Coaches Association Good Works All-American team, if I worded that correctly, man. Tell people about that one real quick.
Well, it's a fun story to tell if you say you're on an All-American team with Peyton Manning and Dante Culpepper, Unfortunately, it wasn't really for on-field accolades, on-field performance, I should say, but it's a good trivia question, man. A lot of the things that I was able to do off the field too, in the community, I mentioned, working with and mentoring newly diagnosed pediatric patients with diabetes. And, we would do a bunch of reading to elementary kids in Hattiesburg at the time. And then, setting up a food drive with the student athlete advisory committee that we started in '96 and continued. And what's really cool is they still do that food drive to this day. And that's really kind of cool to know that that's still done by our student athletes today. And a lot of other things off the field. And so that's what led to that award. And it's nice to be recognized for your efforts in that regard too. And like I said, it's kind of cool to be on an All-American team with Peyton Manning, Dante Culpepper.
There you go. I can't say that. So congratulations to that. And plus, it's a bigger meaning than making tackles. I mean, with stuff you did, and your president's list, dean's list. I mean, man, you did it all, and which kind of gets into something you and I talk about, man. Southern Miss, guys like you and me, changed our lives for the better. Yeah. I mean, my career, whatever I'm doing, whatever I've done in life, wouldn't be where I'm at without Southern Miss athletics and them giving me the springboard to do it. Man, Go ahead. No, go ahead, because we're getting at.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because if there's one thing that those who are watching this, especially our former student athletes, Southern Miss, we hear all the time, about, maybe they use me, or maybe this is other schools, that school used me or whatever. man, Southern Miss did so much for me and so much for you and every one of us. And it set us up on a path for success later on in life, both personally and professionally. And I know this, and I feel very confident in saying this. I learned so much from our time as being a student athlete, far more on the field than in the classroom, that helped me be successful later in life. And I am forever indebted to Coach Bauer, to Coach Thompson, Coach Womack, Coach Joe Robb, all those guys, Coach Butler, all those guys that made such an impact on my life. And how, and in addition to our strength staff and so many others, and the teammates, like guys like, and how we pushed each other. And again, Southern Miss, the relationships, it gave us experiences. It gave us, again, relationships. It gave us the opportunity to develop, all these intangibles on and off the field that we use today, in our personal and professional lives. And I've said this many times, like, if you can operate in a successful way in a college football locker room, there's no better example of that as a small example of life in itself, because you got guys from so many different backgrounds, ethnicities. That's a tough one to say.
No.
Socioeconomic background. I mean, and man, if you can exist in that arena and be successful, man, it will set you up for later on in life without question. And you got a lot of type A personalities, and being able to navigate that and but also be a very good teammate, but also be a leader. And, leadership is not always about being that big dog. It's also about serving others too. And I think that's such a big part of it, man. And Southern Miss gave me so much more than I put into it. And I feel like I gave a ton, but I still got back way more than I put in. And that's the message that I hope everybody takes away, is how much this university means to me and how much it gave us. And it is our university, truly. It is our place, our program. It's not, it's not somebody else's, it's ours. And we need to take ownership of it, and we should treat it that way.
Golly, great way to put it. The way you put it at the end there, man. Treat this place like it's our university. Like, this, what you gotta want to give back. Southern Miss doesn't owe you, give you this, give you that, man. They gave you the springboard for life. Everything you said right there, man. Navigating the locker room. You know what that's taught me, business skills wise. I mean, geez, yeah. Pete. So, but great way to put it, brother. But you wind up graduating in kinesiology. Speaking of, get your graduate degree too in it, and it makes sense. You're such a workout warrior, pound for pound, strongest guy on the team. You go to Tulane in '98 right after, of all teams, Tulane. Will become the assistant strength coach, and they go 12-0. It's ironic you're there, and that's back when Tulane was never going to go 12-0. What'd you do?
There was a lot of parallels between what I'd come from as a player and going there to Tulane that first year, because the common denominator in our senior class in '97, Southern Miss, and going to Tulane '98 was leadership. And that was the common denominator, what carried that group to 12-0. And I go back to, like, it's not the everybody knows, like, from that group, like Sean King and how unbelievable season he had, but and the really the origins of the spread offense with Rich Rodriguez as our offensive coordinator there at the time. But it was more about those guys. They weren't the most talented group. I mean, truthfully, I remember going there when I first got there, which was just a couple of days after I finished playing, and looking at those guys and how I was like, this group is like, it was not good physically. I mean, truly, compared to what we had, but those guys, they worked hard. There's no doubt. They had a tremendous work ethic, but there was great leadership there within that group. And that's really what propelled that group to that undefeated season. I was thankful to be a part of. And, for me, coaching, I did it for 3 years, and I still to this day keep up with a lot of guys, because I love those relationships in coaching, much like the relationships that you and I have with our coaches. I still have those to the day. And I certainly believe, and that's, again, one of those things that I learned early on as a player, and then I coach, and then I use it in professional world now, is that truly the adage of, if you care about someone, they're willing to kind of run through that wall for you. And I think I learned that in coaching, and the willingness that if you invest in a player and invest in someone personally, their willingness to go that extra mile for you will be there. And I think that's something that one of my biggest takeaways from coaching, without question, is that.
Oh man, great coaching perspective right there, man. Nail hit on head, and you had a good run coaching right there, and then you wound up getting into the business world and with an incredible sales career with Pfizer. Where dang, Karr, you're in the Pfizer Hall of Fame.
That was a pretty cool accomplishment. That was a pretty cool accomplishment. It was, and that was a nice culmination for me professionally of all the hard work and dedication I'd put into to competing against those, within Pfizer. And what an awesome reward that was a couple of years ago. And to be able to earn that accolade, which is few and far between with, the thousands that have been, sales representatives with Pfizer through the years. And so it's pretty neat deal, man. It really was. And the intangibles, again, I go back to the things that I learned as a student athlete at Southern Miss, I still use to this day. And it has carried me to success in the corporate world. And, I've had a great run with Pfizer. I'm very thankful. I mean, if it goes back to my relationships, because I started with Pfizer because of my teammate, because of Lee Roberts helped me get an in there. And so, certainly always grateful for my former roommate and teammate, Lee Roberts. And, I'm about to hit year 23 with Pfizer, and it's been such a good run. And I owe a lot of that to Lee, but more importantly to, again, developing those successful traits and of past performance predicts future success, and that is certainly carried forward to Pfizer.
No, congratulations with that. I know no one else works at Pfizer, and from the company that made Viagra, that's a big, huge deal. So congratulations.
I like what you did there, right?
You saw a little dad jokes. I'm full of them, brother. But hey, before we wrap this up, I got to talk about something you're doing. You are big time in the Oak Grove High School football world. You've been doing play-by-play for them for the last 6 years, and you were able to even see your son Cade through there. He had a heck of a baseball and football career at Oak Grove. Man, your engagement with Oak Grove and seeing just how awesome of a program they've become. How's that been for you, man?
Man, I appreciate you asking that. It's been a lot of fun. I started doing it literally because I didn't want to sit in the stands. That's how it started. I got asked to do it, and it kind of blossomed from there. And we were on the radio for a few years, and then during COVID, we had the opportunity to take it off the radio and do a streaming. And we live stream, all the games for football and baseball. And it is, I've been taken back by how many people watch, man. It's amazing because we'll get the heat map and it's people from all over the world. It's insane.
Well, baby, it's you play-by-play, Lance LaFan on color. Come on.
Yeah.
You want to get entertained?
Well, listen, hey, like I always say, it's broadcasting mediocrity with a hint of sarcasm. It's
we
don't claim to be good, which is entertaining-ish, but
awesome.
It has been what's been awesome is to highlight these kids and the staff and the players has been so much fun. And not only that, it's really fun when you're good, and we have been really good. And that's certainly a tip of the cap to the head coach of Oak Grove, Drew Causey, and the phenomenal performance that and program that he's built. This come Saturday night will be the 4th appearance in the state championship over the last 6 years. It's a lot of fun when you're winning. And we've had, I think 6 consecutive years of winning 10 games, which is pretty remarkable, when you think about it. So it's a labor of love. It's a lot of work for Lance and I, but ultimately, man, Friday night lights are always fun. It really is. And, we cut up there. We're not too serious. We want to highlight the kids, but we also have a good time messing with each other along the way, man. And it's been a blessing. It really has been a lot of fun. It truly has.
For any Oak Grove High School football fans watching this part two, what can we expect from the game Saturday? What's something to look out for?
I tell you what, man, it's Oak Grove's a talented group. Oddly enough, we're taking on Starkville. So you got a team from Hattiesburg, a team from Starkville. We're playing in Oxford, who knew? Starkville's a good team. But I think we've got a lot of weapons offensively. I mean, this team is loaded with talent on both sides of the ball, really all 3 phases. Luke Stewart, place kicker and punter. He's a Southern Miss commit. One of our defensive linemen is a Southern Miss commit, but you've got talent all over the place. a Texas A&M commit at quarterback, an LSU commit at wide receiver / corner. So, I mean, there's talent all over the field for Oak Grove. It's going to be a battle. I really believe that. I'm not going to sit here and say, hey, we're going to win this and that. I'm not going to do that. You're going to put me in a corner like that. But I can tell you what, Oak Grove's going to come to play. And this group's been on a mission for quite some time. And looking forward to Saturday night at 7 o'clock, kicking that off, because I'm really excited about seeing what these kids can do.
Oh, man, looks like a great time, and have a great call, you and Lance right there. I know you will. And we're going to wrap this show up very soon, Karr. But before we do, I want you to give a message, maybe for the Southern Miss fan who's struggling with football right now. You know, we're having some down times. Give them a message, man, for the future. I don't know. Help us.
You put me on a spot here, but I appreciate that, because I saw something on Twitter the other day from our mutual friend Jason Bailey, and you won't find a bigger Southern Miss fan than Bump Bailey, man. And
nope.
That guy's a diehard, and what he and Jamie Arrington did with To the Top Talk, but Bump, man, put it out there about, hey, listen, you're not a fan just part of the time, you know. And I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but ultimately, be committed to this program and all the program, you know, not just football, but baseball, basketball, men's, women's basketball, volleyball, this is everything. If you're a true Golden Eagle fan, it is through thick and thin. This program will be better, but it takes each of us. And again, I go back to my comment, it is our university. It's our responsibility to show up, to support by being there, support by buying season tickets, giving to the Eagle Club, giving to the NIL. I mean, doing those things, because the landscape of college athletics has changed, and we have to be even more present to support our university and our athletics program. And listen, times are tough, and the football season was certainly one that none of us had envisioned or enjoyed. And I can tell you, I know, speaking with Coach Hall, he feels that way, and he will do something about it. You know, things are happening as we speak, and we will be better. We are going to get better, but your support shouldn't be unwavering. It should be strong regardless, year in and year out, man. And that's what we need. That is To the Top, truly.
Great message right there. I love that. So I'm motivated for 2024. Thank you, Karr. But man, what an honor it was for my great friend here and I to be able to share his story, because what a story it was. I mean, a guy from that 97 football team, Coach Bauer calls the glue of the team, and I'm not arguing with that. The hardest worker on the team, pound for pound, strongest guy on the team. I mean, he still motivates me to work out this day. So, but Karr, if you don't mind, we close the show the right way. You mind? We do it real quick. All right,
let's do it, man.
Let's do it, baby. Then from Karr Shannon and myself, let's give everybody a big Southern Miss.
To the top.
To the top. So that's it for another edition of Anyone, Anywhere, Anytime. And as always, I'm going to ask you to do something that's absolutely free and easy to do, and that's just help spread the word of the show. Tell your friends and family you like what Marchand's talking about sometimes over there, and I really would appreciate that. So until next time, as always, it's Southern Miss to the top.